Tausen, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
I am Francisca George, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Susan Leemans, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom. Yeah.
My name is Zainab Sammaz, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hey guys, my name is Sasha Vickery, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Hi, my name is Lloyd Harris, and I'm a friend of the show.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Jan Faria, and I'm a friend of the show.
Boom.
Yes.
Take one. Well done.
Hi, my name is Jasmine Paulini, and I'm a friend of the show.
Wow, Jasmine, you got it in one time.
Ready? Play.
Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever time it is in the world, wherever you're tuning on. If it looks like I'm wearing two pairs of sunglasses, it's because I am wearing two pairs of sunglasses, including these comedy ones, by the way, which you can barely see out of, but they were free. So whatever. How are you, Zach?
John, I couldn't be more excited to be here with you today. However, I'm a little upset because we were denied a fifth set in Fritz, Mapecci, Perricard. And I think that couldn't have been a worse decision. I mean, maybe they were required to continue that, but we will be talking about that, I'm sure, on the show. I can't believe they didn't play the fifth set, especially at the pace at which they were playing that match. It was going to be over in 28 minutes. Like, I picked Mapecci Perricard to win in my bracket. And so I should be rooting for him, but I actually feel quite badly for Taylor Fritz, who I think got completely screwed in that situation.
I tell you what, we will start with Taylor in about 1.5 minutes. I will just go through some of the headlines today. And I guess most of the headlines are about people who exited the tournament, seeds, including number 9s on both men's and women's sides. So I'm just going to quickly go through those, but there's also someone who escaped, shall we say, and I think that's also part of the headline. So the big departures from Wimbledon today will be on the women's side, Jelena Ostapenko, the number 20 seed, Paula Badosa, the number 9 seed, and we also lost on Jabeur. She's not a seed, but certainly huge Wimbledon pedigree, twice Wimbledon finalist. On the men's side, Daniel Medvedev, he's the number 9 seed to drop there. Stefanos Tsitsipas retired, injured in the third set, I think a back issue with the Greek. And we lost Holger Rune as well in 5 sets to Nicolas Jarry. They are the headlines in terms of departures. The escapee is Carlos Alcaraz, who unbelievably went 5 sets with Fabio Fognini, but he did emerge the winner in that 5-set epic, and we'll get into that later on. It's well over 4.5 hours. But those are the headlines. But I tell you what, let's start with, I was going to say Fritz Gate, but I guess it's stop past 10 gate really is fairer.
I think Fritz Gate is just fine. And for the American audience,
it's got a nice ring to it, but you need to have the controversy really, whereas Fritz is not the controversy here, right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think, you look at the average miles per hour for the first serve speed for Mapecci Perricard. In the first set, it was 141. His average first serve speed was 141 miles an hour, and it dipped to a mere mortal 133 and 132 from that point forward. And so, yeah, I think one of the things that we'll all be watching tomorrow, if he comes out serving 140 as the average speed, he's got a real shot to win. I mean, look, I think there was one break the whole match. Is that, I mean,
yes, I think you're right.
Yeah. So, in all likelihood, we're looking at a 10-point tiebreaker with the fresh Mapecci Perricard. And I don't want to say that I think of him as the slight favorite tomorrow, but knowing how upset Fritz looked at the decision to delay, which again, it's nobody's fault, just one of the rules. And seeing what Mapecci Perricard was able to do in that first set, I think I gotta pick him, John. I mean, what do you think? Is that crazy talk here to go with the unseeded player over the 5 seed?
No, but I can see why Fritz wanted to continue with the momentum shift, obviously 2-love down and then to 2-all. One thing I just want to get to though is, and we'll get to the match itself and how it panned out, and also who they might or might not be playing in the next round shortly. But just this decision, which was made, I think, at 10:15, And I'll tell you what I think Taylor kind of found frustrating is the decision was they were asking them questions, but I think the way I see it is they should keep playing unless both agree to stop.
Yes.
The curfew is 11 o'clock. So if both say, look, it's fair enough, we don't want to play a fifth set tonight, we might not get it done. And then if we don't get it done, come back 2 games tomorrow. Both might be happy with that scenario. I think half the time they would be. So the guy here I can see on my screen, he's kind of asking them, but then Taylor does say, are you asking me? Or why are you even asking me if the decision's already made? Because Taylor would like to continue. I would suggest that basically if they can keep going and both players want to keep going and both players know that they could get to deuce at 5-all or deuce at 6-all or 8-all in the tie break or whatever scenario, as in 1 or 2 points more could be enough. That's what the players have agreed to at 10:15.
Yeah.
And they'll be thinking about that at various points in the match. They'll be thinking about that. I'm sure that Taylor was thinking at 4-all in the 4th set. Okay, what do I do if I get confronted with this question? Of course, if he wins the tiebreak, which he duly did, and there's a lot to unpack there as well.
Yeah.
I think they should keep going because they could finish it. The other half of it, of course, is that why do they start at 1:30?
I know. It's like, look, if you know that you might run up against
matches,
if you know you're going to run up against this problem, like this is a scheduling issue. Whoever's job it is to give the fans their money's worth, to take care of the players and make sure they're able to complete their match, they didn't do their job. And there's not, and I feel like I harp on this every single time I'm on. Somebody didn't do their job, and the fans and the players are worse off for it. How does this keep happening over and over and over and over and over and over in tennis? It's incredibly frustrating how incompetent the governing bodies are. And look, Wimbledon does many, many things, not just well, elitely, perfectly in some cases. And they just got it wrong here. I'll tell you somebody who didn't get it wrong today, though, John. Lerner Tien. Look good. Look good in round one. Look like a future champ, maybe, in round one. A lot of people say.
Yeah, I think he might have been fortunate with his round one opponent, but we will get to that. I just wanted to quickly talk about this match, and then we will move on, because the match itself, I think, was exciting. Yes. I think it was interesting because of the way I thought that Taylor Fritz was struggling to problem solve. The problem being GMP's serve, which of course is being highlighted in the chat. I think he may have hit 153 at one point, being a peak. He was basically just knocking them back where he possibly could, and then hoping to get in the rally, which would happen from time to time. But I thought actually GMP was hitting some nice backhand winners down the line. I think his forehand was okay. A couple of serve volleys in there as well. Certainly at 2-0, and probably even midway through the 4th set, really, it was still looking pretty good for him. And of course, it looked very good for GMP when he goes up 5-1 in the tiebreaker.
And
because we wouldn't be having this
set. Like Fritz had a moment where it wasn't quite a meltdown, but he expressed understandable frustration with one of those kind of moments that we've all had on a court. And not something you see out of Fritz a ton. You could tell he was frazzled. And look, I get it. He was 2 points away from going home in round one and proving one of my predictions correct for the first time ever.
Yeah. There was also a moment in the 2nd set tiebreak when Fritz had a really good advantage as well. And he messed up a pretty easy forehand cross court that went long. And he had his own meltdown there. And Perricard took that 2nd set. And it did look pretty good for him. As it is now, tomorrow, I'm still going to lean Fritz. I say still lean Fritz. I leaned towards him at the beginning of the match. You've leaned Perricard, and you're still staying that way, right?
I am, because I just think a fresh Giovanni Perricard, one set, knowing he can leave it all on the courts in that set. I think that his serve is just too big. And also, if it's late tournament and the courts are kind of scuffed up a little bit, maybe they've been slowed down, I think I would favor Fritz. If this was a day 7 match, I think I would favor Fritz. But in round 1, day 2, I think, and also knowing Fritz, like, he had the momentum. It was taken from him. and I use the word taken intentionally because it was,
Mhm.
that is psychologically really difficult to get past. Pro athlete, rec player, anywhere in between. That is and you could see the frustration on his face. Watching him zip up his bag, it's like it was it wasn't quite a tantrum, but it was tantrum adjacent. He was zipping with intent, expressing his frustration, in many, many different ways, physically, verbally, all across the board. And so, yeah, I think I'm going to stick with GMP here.
All right. The winner of this match, as and when it does conclude, will play Diallo and Diallo's grass court season. When I didn't watch much of this match, but I watched a few games, and it looked like one player looks comfortable on grass and the other one didn't, and that player won. So Diallo awaits the winner of Fritz and Perricard. He'll hope that they continue to stretch themselves as much as possible. But as you said, the speed at which they were going, they probably will be fine for whenever this match with Diallo takes place, probably on Wednesday, one way or another. All right, let's go down. Let's go down.
Quick.
Go on.
How long is set number 5 going to be when they resume? What's your guess?
38 minutes.
38 minutes. And are you thinking it's going to a tiebreak, a 5th set tiebreak?
Yeah, actually. So that might because obviously 10 points there, that might stretch it out. Yeah, I mean, GMP. Listen, I don't know if I could watch GMP day in, day out. No. I quite like watching him from time to time. And one of those times was today. I enjoyed it because it was like, it wasn't all just, I mean, there was a lot of aces, I think 30 plus at the last count. But it wasn't all just like that. There were some rallies in there. There was some problem solving that I still think Taylor really hadn't quite got to. I think he got away with a bit in that tiebreak at the end with a double fault, certainly from GMP and a couple of other unforced errors, including a pretty horrible volley at the net. Oh. So, he got away with that in many respects. And I think he'll continue getting away with it tomorrow, whether it be 38 minutes, 48 minutes, or whatever. Yeah. Anyway, let's get to Alcaraz Fognini. Alcaraz winning in 5 sets, but I did not see this coming. Did you?
Oh, so there's a lot of chatter on Twitter, in the Discord, all over the place that Fognini, with it being in all likelihood his last ever match at Wimbledon, and I think maybe his last ever professional match. Yes. Is he retired?
No, I checked this.
His last Wimbledon, then.
Wimbledon, definitely. Let's at least stick with that.
So it's his last Wimbledon match ever, and there's chatter. He's going to find a way to steal a set, right? He's going to want. He's not going to go out with the win in all likelihood, but maybe, just maybe, he can reach back for the fastball, find a little magic. Well, he did, and he found the magic twice. I mean, look, I cannot believe that in set number 4, Fognini won 6-2 against the world number 2, but let's be honest, the best player in the world, Carlos Alcaraz. I found myself, as I'm getting older, getting almost emotional watching this, because there's a guy who's playing. He's not playing to win this tournament. He's made his money. He's playing for pride, and he just wanted to go out with one more, and he did, and it was beautiful in its own way. And Alcaraz looked pissed at several different moments in the match. Like, why did I have to be the one on this end of it? Like, why did I get this guy? This is supposed to be a cakewalk. I'm the number 2 seed. And he pushed him. I mean, John, did you find yourself just kind of wondering for brief moments, like, oh my God, is he maybe going to do this?
Well, for 4 sets, I was going to say dipping in and out. I was dipped out. Yeah. I thought, this is a bit curious. There was moments that Fognini and Alcaraz basically were exchanging serves, and even there was a couple of break points here and there in the first set. And I thought, this is even 7-5 felt a bit okay. I was fearing a sort of Gasquet second round against Sinner kind of scoreline where it'd be 2-2-1. Fognini, I think, had lost 8 matches in a row before today. Hasn't looked like really doing much. Pretty much all year. He was out at the beginning of the year, missed the Australian Open through injury, went out in the final round, I think, of qualifying. He certainly went out in qualifying anyway for the French Open, waves to the crowd, goes out first round in Rome, waves to the crowd. Of course, that's his home tournament. So there was nothing really all year that suggested Fognini was going to lay a glove on Alcaraz, never mind win a couple of sets. And when he wins that 4th set 6-2, that's when I'm like, I have to tune in. And at that point, they were at the change of ends, and I just saw Alcaraz basically looking a bit under the weather, but that could have been the mental strain of it. I'd have to lean on someone who saw large parts of the first 4 sets to say whether he was having issues at all, or maybe someone who dipped into his post-match comments or press conference. Certainly on the court, he didn't mention it. He was just full of praise for Fognini, as you'd expect, and also social media posts. But he looked like I'd seen 2 or 3 players today who were struggling physically, who will also come to, mainly with the heat. And I thought, okay, this could be interesting. But he goes up 3-love in the tiebreak. He has a really tough, I think, service hold as well.
Yeah.
Gets that done, breaks, holds. Then there's an illness with someone in the crowd. So the things sort of calm down for 15 minutes while we get that. Fortunately, I think it cleared up.
Can I say something crass about that?
Go on.
They simply have to find a way to get back to playing faster in a 5th set. And I really hope that the person in the crowd is well or is okay. I wish them a speedy recovery. But again, like, if you're a tournament official, get them on a gurney, get them out of there, get the players back on the courts. There is no other sporting event on the planet where somebody in the crowd being sick is going to delay the game by 15 minutes, period.
Yeah, I don't know why it would take a while to move them or get them out. I mean, it does happen quite a lot, doesn't it, at tennis? But obviously,
you're there for 12 hours in the sun. Like, it can happen to somebody perfectly healthy, but get out of there.
I will come to something on a similar note, but regarding the players when we switch to the women's side, because I think there is something not crazy, and it certainly barely probably scratched any headlines, bearing in mind there were several other things going on today, but we'll get to that shortly. Listen, Alcaraz, next round, Tarvet, I haven't seen him play that match today with Reedy, but of course the 700 plus in the world, the qualifier coming through against Leandro Reedy, and now he's going to come up against Alcaraz. I've just seen Fognini win 2 sets against Alcaraz, so anything almost is possible, but it's a nice draw for Carlos, and Carlos had to apologize to the crowd at the end of his encore speech. He said, "I'm sorry, I might be trying to spoil your party in the next round."
But also, I mean, like, look, so for Alcaraz, he just got a ton of reps in on grass, and not that he doesn't have any reps, but like, it's always helpful. It's a short season to get some match play against somebody who is throwing a whole bunch of looks at him, who's comfortable enough on the surface at least. And yeah, I think that I feel bad. I mean, I don't feel bad for Tarvet. Great run, congratulations. Best of luck, in your career as you move forward. But yeah, Carlos is going to cook him. I mean, I think that match is a contender to be over in under 90 minutes, maybe. Yeah. Like, it's the 700 and something and 2. I mean, the guy who's 700 in the world is far closer to Carlos Alcaraz than a normal person is to the guy who's 700. But that's a giant gap.
Indeed. All right. Well, a second round match that we can look forward to on Wednesday is going to be between Felix Auger-Aliassime and Jan-Lennard Struff. Both took scenic routes to the second round, with Felix beating Duckworth in 5 sets. He was 2 sets to 1 down. Jan-Lennard Struff coming through in 4 sets against Misalic. It was at 1 set all at one point before Jan-Lennard emerged the winner. One of these guys is going to be losing to Carlos Alcaraz in the 3rd round. Which one's it going to be?
I think FAA. I don't know. It's like,
I'm going for FAA as well.
I think FAA. He's got the big serve. They both do.
I like both of these players on grass, but they've both had their moments, if you like. And I think they're all in the past. Even though Felix is actually still 24, Jan-Lennard at 35, he's allowed to have his best moments in the past. Yeah, Felix is not allowed to have his best moments in the past at 24. But I do think they might have been in the past in terms of where he's at, especially on grass. Because, 21, 22, we were thinking Felix, grass, he's got a Wimbledon title in him. Now we're just thinking if he's got Wimbledon wins in him and in terms of matches.
I mean, look, I think FAA is going to get it done. I'm going to personally root for Struff because, look, he's 35. How many more Wimbledons does he have in him? Root for the old guy. FAA has plenty of time to turn around. I think you're right, though, John. It's a shame because he's such a talent. I mean, watching Breakpoint, though, you could see he just, like, he doesn't have that kill in his mentality that the top guys have to have. Like, I hate to say this. I actually think that he's too nice of a guy. You need to be a little bit of a jerk sometimes to get it done at the highest level.
Right. People are obviously thinking, John, there's two very important things. Why are you, saying that both of these guys are obviously going to lose to Carlos Alcaraz? Don't you remember how hard Jan-Lennard Struff has pushed Alcaraz on the grass at Wimbledon and also on the clay in Madrid? So that's three matches that were wafer thin margins and really could have gone either way. And then you might also say, well, why are you so convinced that Felix has beaten Jan-Lennard? To be honest with you, it's all about Jan-Lennard. And it's because it's a year since I felt good about watching Jan-Lennard Struff play. And what do I mean by that? It's not that I don't enjoy watching him play and like to see him win tennis matches. Absolutely. But I interviewed him in September last year after a rough couple of months with a hip injury. And it sounded like he was managing it. And it was like, I'm going to try and get through this because I'm 35 years old. So I don't want to be, spending a year off the tour trying to fix this hip injury. I've just got to try and work my way around it. And otherwise, I would be like, listen, I think Struff can beat Felix. I think Struff against Alcaraz could be fun. Maybe Alcaraz does win it, but it's 4 or 5 sets and epic points with the variety that Jan-Lennard can bring to the court. But let me tell you now, Struff, I watch him quite a bit with interest, and it's not the same player that I saw in 2023 in particular.
I think that's a really, really good point. I do want to point out in the chat, we've got Zhao and Jake Davies chiming in. If you're watching along and you want to be an active part of the conversation, write in. We want to know your thoughts. Ask us any questions that you've got. We're here not just to talk with each other, but to talk with y'all. And so Jake Davies, shout out. Always appreciate you, Zhao. I think it's my first time being on with you. And then Matthew D'Souza points out something that is very important to highlight. John, I always go off on these tangents, so forgive me. Sure. That the matches start at 1:30 because of the corporate hospitality. This is from Matthew. Yes. Their guests want to arrive at 11 a.m., walk around the outside courts, then come for lunch, and then enjoy center court and number one action. And Matthew, that's exactly right. And to the rich people that are doing that, just stop. It sucks.
And the other thing is in response to that is if they were on center court at 1:30 p.m. watching the matches from start to finish, maybe I'd be okay with it. But they're not. They're not there. They're not there at all. Or they are there at 4 o'clock and they come on. I watched Fritz against Nadal in 2022, and some Evian people wandered in at about 4 o'clock, sort of midway through the 4th set as an unbelievable epic was unfolding, and then left again midway through the 5th set. And so they missed the dramatic end with the 5th set deciding set tiebreak. So I don't think it really matters whether we start the matches at 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock, or 5 o'clock. That's still not going to be there. Right. Next topic. Rublev Gera, by the way. Rublev somehow managed to find himself in a bit of a hole. In fact, he was down in the 4th set tiebreak before eventually emerging through. Bergs saved a couple of match points in the 3rd set to ultimately go on and force a 4th set, but Lloyd Harris emerging the winner there. Mannarino in straight sets and Tsitsipas.
Wait. Lloyd Harris, friend of the show?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Friend of the show, Lloyd Harris, getting it done.
Yeah. Friend of the show, and one of those guys that would be amazing to have a beer with, but maybe he might get distracted, if you know what I mean. And I'd be like, oh, Lloyd, just give me an hour of your time. Anyway, Lloyd is through.
Lloyd.
I want to be your friend, Lloyd, okay? But I want to be more than a 20-minute. Anyway, Harris and Rublev are going to go up against each other, and Mannarino and Royer are going to go up against each other in round 2. Now, I just want to dwell, though, for a second on Tsitsipas. He retired with a back injury. He was down 2 sets to love. Where are we at with Tsitsipas at the moment?
I mean, in about the same place as Badosa right now, right?
Yeah,
I mean, like the two of them are not playing consistent winning tennis. And, it's partially because of health. It may partially because of focus. It may be because other people are just getting better faster than he is. And look, I think it's sad. His best days are behind him. We will not see Tsitsipas in the top 5 again. Not sure we're going to see him in the top 10 again either.
Well, somebody who I often compare him to on the show in terms of like, where are we at with these two players? Who's in the worst situation is Daniel Medvedev. Both has sort of next gen. They're going to win slams. They're going to push the big three. They're going to, affect the Grand Slam race or the GOAT race or whatever you want to call it. That they, on their day in the right conditions, they're on a par or maybe even better than members of the big three. And one of them is Stefanos Tsitsipas, and the other one is Daniil Medvedev. Yep. And every now and again, I say, Damien, who's in a worse spot right now? Is it Tsitsipas or is it Medvedev? Medvedev lost, of course, on the court in 4 sets today. So, I mean, either reflect on his opening round loss or answer the question, who's in a worse spot right now, Stefanos or Daniil?
I would say Stefanos is in a worse spot because Daniel's going to retire soon. I think that we were spoiled by the big three and by others from that generation, Dimitrov, Monfils, Gasquet, Wawrinka. The normal age of retirement for tennis players for up until very, very recently was about 30. They would hit 30, and the expectation is that's when your game falls off a cliff. And some of the greats were exceptions to that, enabled to play past it. But that really has been the historic norm. I think that we're returning to that. I think that we will see, the Alcarazes and the Sinners who are able to spend, obscene amounts of money on their physios and their dietitians and all of these resources. They'll like Federer, like Nadal, like Djokovic, like Murray will be able to extend their careers. But the guys that are, kind of at the next level, I'm not sure they will. I think Medvedev, there are some guys that you wonder, what's that guy going to do after tennis? That is not Medvedev. I'll tell you, he's going to be awesome at Counter-Strike. He's going to be playing chess every day. He maybe will do a little commentary. I could see him being a coach. He will be fine. He will absolutely move on with, and Tsitsipas is in the same situation. I think Tsitsipas will hang on for longer than Medvedev. I expect to see Medvedev retiring within the next 2-3 years. I mean, is that crazy talk, or do you think that is reasonable?
No, I think it's about. See, this he's kind of hit a wall in terms of, that it's okay he loses on grass early, okay, even a round 1 here and there, and even a round 1 at the French Open, like happened in 23, for example, on the back of winning Rome. The problem is now these results are happening a bit more often, and they're also happening on hard courts. He didn't get to the Indian Wells final this year, unlike the previous couple of years. He's not winning. I think it was his first final in Halle in 2 years as well. So, and that's across all elements of the tour. So, okay, he doesn't play 250s that often. That's true. But I just want to interject, by the way, some news for Matthew and anyone else who cares, actually, regarding a question from the live chat earlier. And that is that Zverev is scheduled second on center court tomorrow. So not before, I think, 2:30 local time, but that's second on center court tomorrow because they have to play again on the same courts. And Taylor Fritz is scheduled second on court number 1. So both will resume their matches on the respective courts that they played on today. Not only that, they will have to resume in the same conditions in which they finished. So that means the roof will be closed tomorrow. Now, I don't think it'll be that bad because I think air conditioning may well come into play in terms of the fact that it could be 35, 40 degrees tomorrow, just like today, but there's going to be blazing sunshine outside and those roofs are going to be closed. It may save a few people in the stadium getting sunburnt, so maybe that's a good thing, but it still seems a bit odd and ludicrous that they have to have the roofs closed.
Help me and help the viewers and listeners understand why they're not first. Help me understand. Tell me that like I'm a relatively smart 5-year-old, because 33-year-old me is confused and I think angry. I'm not 100% sure I'm angry, but I'm pretty sure I'm about to be. So break it down, John.
I'm annoyed about if there's 2 or 3 other things more than this decision. And I can understand if, for example, because you don't know the conditions that they're leaving the court in. Often if you're struggling to finish by 11 o'clock at night, I mean, don't forget today, even with a 1:30 start, they have been a bit unlucky in that we had a 4 hours and 37-minute epic between Fognini and Alcaraz, which there's about a million parallel universes out there. Can you have more than one parallel universe? I think you can. You know what I mean anyway. And those 2 players have played that match and they've finished in 2.5 hours or 2 hours. And Alcaraz is already having some tapas and some sangria midway through the afternoon somewhere in the middle of London. But unfortunately, the universe that we live in, it went 5 sets. Then, of course, you had But the 15-minute delay as well, it all adds up. But the 15-minute delay in the fifth set there with it might be 20-minute delay with the person ill in the crowd. But then finally, you also have a 3-set match between Bolter and Badosa that I think was 6-4 in the third to Bolter. So that was also a longer match than you'd normally anticipate. Then, of course, this one goes 5. So all three have gone into the worst case scenario. So it is a probably 20 to 1 shot. And if you throw in the fact that Alcaraz beats Fognini in straight sets, let's say at least 9 times out of 10, it's probably more like 100 to 1 shot that we're in this situation. But when you're normally in this situation, it will be because you've got two people that are knocking 7 bells of whatever out of each other. And therefore, do you have the expression in the US?
You know, I don't. I have not heard it before, but it tracks. I really quickly want to go back to the Medvedev Tsitsipas, who's in worse shape. Sentel, which I have mixed feelings about, although it is very funny sometimes. Sentel put out a tweet saying that Tsitsipas was changing to a 2-handed backhand because he just wasn't able to compete at this level with a one-hander, and people bought it. And people retweeted it, and they didn't realize they were getting Sentel'd. And I don't think people would believe that Medvedev was switching to a one-hander. Part of that is a reflection on the different styles of backhand, but the fact that credible, serious tennis fans believed it, even for a second, tells me that Tsitsipas is actually the one in worse shape.
Fair enough. All right. Anyway, let's get back to the tennis on the court and no roofs involved in some of these matches. I'm going to scroll back down to the bottom of my screen. Okay, we've done this section of the draw. We've done this section of the draw. Okay, Cam Norrie, that's a really good win for him over Roberto Bautista Agut. Bautista Agut's form, not bad. Semis at Queen's, former Wimbledon semi-finalist. Cam Norrie, of course, will say, hey, don't forget, I've been in the semi-final at Wimbledon as well. Both of them, of course, losing to Djokovic. I think both lost in 4 sets in 2019 and 2022, respectively. But this is a match that I kind of had on, but was busy watching a couple of others at the same time. So it was there. And a couple of times I found myself talking about Cam Norrie against Roberto Bautista Agut. And I thought, why am I talking about this when all hell is broken loose between Ostapenko and Kartal? It was just on my big screen, so I couldn't help it. But it wasn't anything it was probably a good match, but it didn't reach the heights of some of the other matches I've seen today. Anyway, Norrie is through, and he's going to play Tiafoe in the next round. Tiafoe winning a straight sets match. Is Tiafoe waking up? He sort of hibernates, doesn't he, between middle of September and June or July. Sometimes turns up in Stuttgart, wins the title, gets to Wimbledon, pushes Alcaraz to 5 sets, carries on some momentum through Washington and then obviously into the US Open, and then goes back to sleep again in mid-September.
Tiafoe still has, when he's on, his top level is still pretty darn close to elite. It's not quite that top tier, but he can beat anybody outside the top 5. That being said, if I'm him, I'm looking at the draw right now, and I'm not thrilled that I'm playing an unseeded Norrie. Norrie looked, I think, very solid. He's, not somebody that you want to play in front of the, with having the home crowd with them. It's going to be a tough matchup for Tiafoe. If Tiafoe wins convincingly, I think that bodes very well for him for the rest of the draw. That being said, Lehecka is, and by the way, the difference between American and European pronunciations are so tragic. I do my best, John. I just don't have that flair and that proper pronunciation that you mastered.
There are a million people worse than you, and 1 or 2 of them do appear on this channel from time to time.
The other thing is, man, if you told me an Italian player, first initial M, last initial B, was going to get a win in round 1, I would have said, great. I am unsurprised. Berrettini is very good on grass and on fast surfaces. And I had him, and I tweeted this out, so it's public record. I tweeted out that Berrettini was going to be in the semis. I feel pretty silly because he lost, and Bellucci is the Italian moving forward. I do not think that he beats Lehecka in round 2. What's your read?
No. I'm on that one too. Berrettini losing in 5 sets to Maishik, which really shouldn't be happening on grass. But anyway,
how did that happen? Like I didn't catch any of that match.
No, me neither. But listen, it's where Berrettini's at. I mean, Berrettini has been an on-off, but mostly off story probably since about. I don't think I'm exaggerating by going back to around about September 22. So he misses Wimbledon. He misses Wimbledon. So we can even go back to summer of 22. So 3 years. He tests positive for COVID on the eve of Wimbledon, and he's going into that tournament as the second favorite in his side of the draw. So there's him and Nadal on one side, there's Djokovic on the other. And it's like, okay, Berrettini and Nadal, Wimbledon semi-final is happening. I know that Kyrgios was going to have a breakout Wimbledon in some respects, but that happened on the back of an unbelievable 5-set win over Paul Jubb in the first round. So, who knows what goes on there. Christian Garin ends up getting to the quarterfinals that year because he takes Berrettini's berth. Anyway, I don't want to digress too much. He then goes to the US Open that year, and I think, you know what, Berrettini's going to have a good US Open. Maybe get to the semis, maybe get to the final. Loses to Casper Ruud in straight sets. Don't know how that happened. Anyway, so his form starts falling off a little bit. Not crazily, but a little bit. A bit of misfortune. Then he starts getting injuries and then injuries. Then comes back, summer of 24. He plays the post-Wimbledon clay court swing, does pretty well there, but he can't stay fit for a sustained period of time. Then this year and this clay court and grass court season, it's like he's turning up at tournaments and then retiring as he did in Rome, just desperate to play his tournament in his home country, even though it's going to cost him basically a place at the French Open because he doesn't play the French Open through injury. He tries, he pulls out of tournaments pre-Wimbledon. It's like, I've just got to try and be fit for Wimbledon, and it's where he's at. And
his tennis doesn't look good, but my God, does he look good still? I mean, hey, he'll be fine. I hope he gets his tennis in order. If not, that guy was built for the runway and for Instagram and will be just fine. Ooh,
I think it's too late. What do you think, Zach? I think it's
all these guys.
His moment was 21, 22, maybe 23 if he'd have been fit.
If you are 25 years of age or older and you are a male professional tennis player, hey, you had a good run. Maybe top 10, go for it, can happen. But I just don't see a world in which he can seriously compete with Sinner or Alcaraz ever. His
deficiencies, by the way, are only exposed by 2 or 3 elite players in the world, and only even certain circumstances and certain. So actually, that would be a secondary question, Jake. But right now, he just needs to stay fit for 12 months.
I think you can pinpoint the moment where it all went wrong for him. It was the release of Breakpoint Season 1, and he got ripped for being a bit of a jerk to his then girlfriend, Isla Tomljanovic.
I mean, I think it was towards the end of that 2022, so maybe even September, October that came out or something like that. But
he's been rubbish, to use the British phrase, since then, essentially. And again, I feel bad because some of it is clearly health and injury related, so it's not necessarily for lack of effort. But yeah, he just hasn't gotten back to that level. Even if he were to get back to that level is now no longer good enough. Sinner and Alcaraz are propelling the game forward. People are not staying at the same level. They are getting better. And that's why I think that there's room for some, at this point already, tired discourse around who would win peak Federer versus peak Alcaraz.
Oh, yeah, I saw some of that today. I still think Berrettini, playing his best, 21, 22, this sort of period on grass, he's in a conversation. He's probably in the power rankings in 3, 4, 5 spot. And you know what, you're going, maybe against Carlos, it might be tricky, but I think against Jannik, if we had that, wrapped up in cotton wool, maybe he played one tournament prior to this and he won Queens or he got to the final or whatever. And then he goes in and don't forget, before the Alcaraz match in 2023 that they played at Wimbledon, there were some people saying, I think Berrettini's going to win this. We certainly can give him a match. And ultimately, I think Carlos won, in 4 sets. But listen, that's yesteryear. Let's get back to today. And just quickly, so Bellucci beating Crawford, a nice first round for the Italian.
Did we talk about Zhao yet?
Not yet. But I'm just looking at this just quickly. Just want to polish off this here.
Yeah.
And Lehecka is through. I think, coming back to your Tiafoe point, by the way, yes, it's not ideal to play Cam Norrie second round, but listen, you're seeded 12. Okay, so it doesn't really affect you. Just going to play a non-seeded player. But you've had Muller in the first round, so you've had your nice bit. You're going to play someone in the second round. He could be playing Lehecka. Sorry, he couldn't play Lehecka in the second round, but he could be playing Zhao in the second round or some other unseeded player. But we'll come to Zhao in a moment. So I don't think it's that bad. And I think it's 51-49 Francis over Cam. It'd be interesting. Obviously, I think it might well put it on central or number 1 court. And then it's going to get obviously tougher and I'm pretty sure it will be Lehecka in round 3. He's someone who also doesn't always stay fit, but you've got 3 of the 4 players here. All will say, I'm ready to reach the 4th round at Wimbledon. It's Bellucci who is the odd person out.
Indeed.
Right, next section that does include our good friend Zhao. I do want to start, though, with this section with... Go on, let's do just a minute on teen basketball.
Just give it to me. Give it to me. We are cruising toward the match that every tennis fan and their mother and their cousin and everybody else they're like a little bit related to wants to see. Lerner Tien, João Fonseca, round 3, the match of the day, maybe, if it
on
happens.
A hard court for sure.
Oh, man.
Definitely.
Look, everybody is missing the forest through the trees with Lerner Tien. Is he going to have the flashiest weapon? No, he's not. Is he going to hit the biggest serve or forehand? Certainly not. But his weapon is the one you can't see. It's his mind. He plays so smart, and he's got a little bit of flair and a little bit of creativity to him. And I think he has, it doesn't appear that way because he doesn't have a ton of power. He has an all-court game. His problem-solving ability is unbelievable. And I think that like people think I'm being silly when I talk about Lerner Tien. And every now and then, perhaps, John, I'm prone to a touch of hyperbole from time to time. But he really is a high-end talent. Like Leighton Hewitt was the world #1 with his fitness and with his speed. He didn't have big flashy weapons. And I don't think the Tien is going to be world #1. But he can absolutely be a top 10 player. I don't think people are fully appreciating how talented and how good this kid is because he will get stronger and he will get more athletic as he continues to work on his fitness and fills out a little bit. And also, I'd be remiss if I didn't say, hey, best viewers on streamboo.com, remove the space at KUUCZMGN. Thank you, typed affection WJ4, for your comment. Keep being active in the chat. We love to see it.
Right. So Lerner Tien is going to be playing Nicolas Jarry in round 2 because Nicolas Jarry, and this is a match I pretty much saw from start to finish.
Wow.
Nicolas Jarry came from 2 sets down to beat Holger Rune in 5 sets. Well, what happened in this match? As you can see, obviously Rune won the first 2 sets. Rune was actually up a double break in the first set before Jarry got one of those breaks back, but it was too much for him to claw back. The match was not that big a gap between the two players, but it did feel as though Rune had a bit more quality, especially when it mattered most. Hence the fact he won those first 2 sets 6-4. I do remember, I think it might have been midway through the second set. It might have been Matthew said to me, do you think this has got 5 sets written all over it and Rune is going to unnecessarily take a scenic route through, basically? And I was like, yeah, a little bit, but it's not going to be 5. It's going to be 4. I could still see Jarry winning this set because he just was showing a lot of quality. I started to believe, I believed in Nicolas as well in terms of on a grass court, despite his very patchy form, which has seen him obviously plummet down the rankings, having got to the Rome final last year and not coming close to replicating that. But I did not see it going 5 sets. Probably a footnote to mention is that Rune at 5-2 down in the in the 4th set, did have some attention to a knee issue. He then also had some strapping on it. But come the 5th set, he seemed to be moving okay and even threatened the Jarry serve a little bit. However, Jarry struck at 4-all, served it out, and Jarry, again, is another one of these guys hitting big today. Okay, he had 5 sets to do it in, but he also hit over 30 aces. Maybe Rune on return will be a bit disappointed with how he dealt with the Jarry serve. But anyway, it's Jarry who comes through, and he's going to play Lerner Tien. What are any words on this upcoming match?
One, Lerner Tien's going to win. Take that to the bank. So secretly mortgage your parents' house so you can bet it all on Lerner Tien there. With Jarry, he's a talented player. Not shocked to see him get this result on Rune, which is both a testament to Jarry's talent. It's also kind of a knock on Rune right now. Like he's had kind of a spotty season, some inconsistencies, a couple early exits here and there. And I think that he's another one where it's like, look, he's a young guy, but people's windows as pro athletes in general, but in tennis especially, it's a lot shorter than people realize. If Rune doesn't get it together and put a team around him that can actually help him go to the next level, his window's going to close. He does not have a decade to figure it out. He's got a couple years to set himself up for success. He does not have the talent like a Kyrgios to just like in his late 20s commit and get it different. He doesn't have the Agassi level of talent to finally focus on his fitness and go to that next level. He needs to right now get it together. And I don't know who's advising him. I think, unfortunately, he's advising himself a lot. He has got to make changes, and he should not wait. I mean, the will they, won't they with Moratoglu, the being coached by a parent, like, buddy, like, get it together. You are an all-world tennis player. He had the level to compete with Alcaraz and Sinner, and he just simply cannot right now. He can't even beat Jerry in a round 1 match. And I hope that we see him figure it out, because I think he's an all-world. He's a talented player. I think that he is entertaining. I think it's good for the sport to have a villain from time to time, and certainly he could be that. But he's got to get results to be a villain. Right now, nobody's rooting against a loser. They just don't care. And right now, that's him.
I think his confidence is a little bit off. If he's listening to you talk right now, it'll really knock his confidence. But yeah, I do think he's playing a little bit cautiously at times now, which is not something that you would associate him with his game in terms of when he was emerging in 21, 22 as being a big ball striker and pretty courageous in big moments, especially in that Paris run he had in 22 to the title, but Paris-Bercy, of course. But I saw it a bit today as well. Just sometimes just playing it down the middle, being a bit cautious when I expected him to go a bit bigger on that. But anyway, Jarry against Teen. You'll be unsurprised to hear that I'm going for Jarry to win this one. And Jarry, of course, coming through qualifying. And funny enough, Jarry was asked in his on-court interview, did that help you, like today, you know, in terms of winning this match? And Jarry was right. I don't mind the question. It's not the worst question in the world. There's plenty worse. But Jarry rightfully said, if it had helped me, it was going to help me at the beginning of the match. And yet I lost the first 2 sets. Anyway, Jarry comes through, and I do expect him to beat Lerner. I think Lerner on grass is a work in progress, and I think Jarry is a bit more refined, and he'll be in the 3rd round. Now, in that 3rd round, Jarry's going to play João Fonseca or Jenson Brooksby, who both had really, really impressive 3-set wins today. I watched Fonseca Fernley pretty much from start to finish. And yeah, the first set was tight. Once Fonseca won that, though, it did feel pretty good. Fernley did have a 5-3 advantage, I'll say, I think, in the tiebreak, in the 3rd set tiebreak. But I always thought that if Fernley wins that, it's just going to be a consolation, and Fonseca's going to win this in 4. Fonseca was serving unbelievably as well. It's a thing that we forget about. His forehand was working pretty well today. And he sets up a next round match, which I think in terms of styles, very interesting against Brooksby, who, if Grigspor, by the way, was not compromised in any way, shape or form, had a really, really good straight set win. So João Fonseca, Jenson Brooksby, what can we expect?
So look, Brooksby is in form, but Fonseca has a higher gear. And so if we see Fonseca's A game, I expect him to win in 3. Maybe there's a world in which Brooksby steals a set. I wouldn't bet on it. If Fonseca is, maybe his first serve's not hitting, maybe that big forehand of his misfires a little bit, I could see a world in which Brooksby could push him, but I think it's Fonseca's match, setting up the round 3 clash that, again, the world wants to see. Lerner T and João Fonseca, the 2 brightest teenage talents in the sport.
Not any combination really, but all 4 of these players bring something of interest.
Yeah.
I'm okay with Jarry Fonseca as well. I'm okay with Teen Fonseca, of course. And Brooksby, I quite like watching, and I'm really pleased to see him back on the tour and performing well across all surfaces. Did I pick Jarry to beat Rune? No, I didn't. I certainly said Rune in 4 during a conversation today, and I'm sure if I'd have had a huge amount of thought about it beforehand, I'd have gone for Rune one way or another, but he didn't emerge the winner. We've already spoken about Berrettini Maishik. 4 sets win there for Quinn over Searle. Rinderknech and Zverev are 1 set all. Rinderknech will have some regrets there about that 2nd set where he had chances to go up 2 sets to love.
Was it 4 match points? Or sorry, set points?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, that hurts.
Christian Garin, lucky loser coming through. Of course, he replaced at the last minute Pablo Carreño Busta. All these initial people are from Spain is a bit tricky for me. Pablo Carreño Busta pulled out at the last minute, so he's still yet to win a match at Wimbledon PCB. Christian Garin, though, can win matches at Wimbledon, as he proved in 2022 with that incredible run that he had. And the lucky loser winning over Roddish today, and he'll await the winner of Rinderknech Zverev. Let's move on with a pace. Because we've still got the women to talk about. And really good win for Nuno Borges, by the way. 4 sets win. He was super emotional at the end. I saw Borges have a painful loss when he had match points against Roberto Bautista in Queens recently and had a bit of a meltdown in the 3rd set and felt as though he was struggling mentally. So it was a really good, particularly as he lost the first set. And actually, the Portuguese tennis players are having some pretty good years with a nice spread of Grand Slam wins, if you include Jaime Faria and, of course, Enrique Rocha. Faria is up in action, of course, tomorrow. Billy Harris, straight sets win over Lajovic, and Hachinov, straight sets win over McDonald. Do you want to say anything about either Khachanov, Harris, or Borges?
Not really. I feel like I always have an opinion, but like they're pretty straightforward matches. That being said, very exciting for Borges. I'm a big fan of his. I think that he's a guy who grinds.
I like him. I like him as a person as well. I've met him a couple times.
He really. I think he's somebody who maximizes his potential. You know, and I mean that with nothing but respect and admiration.
I was watching a WTA 125 in Portugal. It was Iala against Udvardi. There was a shocking call from the umpire that actually went against Udvardi. And I mean, basically, you've got at the side of the court, maybe 3 or 4 people. I'm one of those 3 or 4 people. The umpire's another one. And when I say at the side of the court, there were line judges there because it was a 125. And there was maybe a photographer, and that was it. On the adjacent, it was just like playing at your club, you know, balls could easily fly from one court to another and all the rest of it. Imagine the picture. On the adjacent court, Nuno Borges was practicing. But at this juncture, when this terrible call went against Udvardi, he's kind of watching a bit. It's Udvardi against Iala in second round, I think it was, in Werash. And he even said to me, he said, that didn't go out, did it? I said, no, not in a million years. And so it was just an amusing exchange that next time I met him, I felt, okay, I think I had a nice exchange with him. And he sometimes does sort of nod his head and say hello, recognizing faces and stuff. So the next time I saw him was in a mixed zone after a pretty tough loss at a challenger. And I did step it up a bit with the question. I think it was like something along the lines of, you know, another tournament in Portugal slips through your fingers. This is in Estoril.
Oh, John.
Yeah, I know. I thought I can take this risk because, you know, we had that lovely exchange.
Yeah.
Part of the court a couple of weeks before, and he'll remember that. Anyway, he was fine with it, but yeah, that can go south. Anyway, it didn't go south, and nor did his match today. He is through. Let's pick up the pace. Anyway, Ferry is going to be playing Darderi. Darderi had a wonderful 5-set win over Safiullin. Safiullin, of course, had a great win a couple of years ago at Wimbledon. He's going to be playing Artur Ferry. And Jordan Thompson's going to be playing Bonzi. We already mentioned the Bonzi win over Medvedev. I didn't see this match, but I'm sorry, Bonzi. But the story is Medvedev, of course. You know, when you get to the top 10 in the world, Mr. Bonzi. And also, by the way, if we had Damien on here, I know he'd love to have a few words, but you're going to have to beat Jordan Thompson, and then we'll give you all the time in the world for your third round match against Darderi or Ferry. And by the way, if Bonzi beats Thompson, I don't think he will, but if he does, then he could be in the 4th round.
I mean, this is the most wide open, not quite quarter, but I guess 1/8, the most wide open 1/8 of the draw. This is a ridiculous round 2 and 3. And so, yeah.
It's where tweets are already being crafted. One of Ferry, Darderi, Thompson, or Bonzi is in the 4th round, you know?
Yeah.
Anyway, it is what it is. Let's move up. Any other results we need to touch on? I think we might be close. David Fokina, did he fall? I don't know. But what I do know is he beat Brandon Holt today in straight sets. I like David Fokina on the grass. I think he can have a good run here. I think he can make the 3rd round. I think he loses probably. Well, of course, I've got Taylor Fritz going through. So that is that. Anything else to add on the men's side of the draw? Because that's pretty much us done on the men before we switch over to the women.
So I'm so sorry. I got a work message came in and distracted me. Could you repeat that for me one more time, John?
Yeah, of course, no problem. Basically, I've just been mentioning a bunch of players, and if you want to elaborate on any of them, you're more than welcome to. David Fokina was one of them.
Hey, Mazel, he got married. He's playing. He got married.
Yeah, right.
He's playing well, and I think that's great. I think as somebody who's big fan being married, good for him. I hope the streak continues. Sell the institution of marriage. It's great. Good for Davidovich Fokina.
Great. Wonderful. That means we can move over to the women's side of the draw. Sabalenka winning in straight sets against Brandstein. It was a bit of a fight in the second set, as you can tell.
But also at 5-0, when Brandstein got on the board, the crowd went nuts because it was it was a real question of whether it was going to happen at that point. Good for her for having a more competitive, the dreaded C word set 2. I think Sabalenka kind of took her foot off the gas.
Now, we just looked at a pretty open side of or section of the draw on the men's side. This is quite a vicious section, in my opinion. I mean, even from the first round, vicious, because Kessler is a tough first round for Vondrousova. Vondrousova, by the way, was trying to serve it out and didn't serve it out. I think she was up 5-3 or 5-4. She was up 5-3 at one point in the second set. But anyway, got pushed to the tie, but goes through. Vondrousova, I'm going to tell you now, I've got her making the final. So,
you think that she's going to beat Raducanu, which
Yeah.
I think is likely, and then beat Sabalenka, or you think somebody else?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I think Sabalenka's making the final, and I don't think anybody can stop.
Oh, sure. Listen, I can see that. I've just got some doubts about Sabalenka.
Break it down for us. Tell us what's the why. Because for me, I am completely and totally sold on Sabalenka and the season that she's having, getting to the finals. Beyond that,
I'm. Listen, not big picture Sabalenka, just right now, like whatever day it's Tuesday, the 1st of July is here, and still you on Monday, the 30th of June in the US. But I'm just a bit worried about her right now. This year has been almost the best women's 6 months on tour that we've maybe not seen for decades, even including that Swiatek unbeaten run period, because bearing in mind she only won 1 slam in that unbeaten. What do I mean? I mean, she's basically 2 or 3. If she wins that super wafer thin final in Australia when it was, 5-6 in the third and really probably could have and should have gone to a tiebreak, and who knows? I mean, we're talking about 1 or 2 points away from an Australian Open three-peat there. Yeah. If she is in control, which she was in control of that Indian Wells final against Mida Andreeva, and probably could have and should have gone on to beat Mida, as she'd done so many times before, with the exception, I think, of the French Open when Rune was sick, and even then she still nearly did it. So that's another one. And then, of course, we've had the French Open final just recently. We're talking about points, we're talking about centimeters. She wins those 3 titles, and I know ifs, buts, and maybes, but we're not talking about much, are we? We're talking about a couple of points here and there. And she's had, then you throw in all the other finals and the Miami title as well. She's winning in Brisbane as well, and she's had the best 6 months in probably 20 or 30 years, maybe going back to Graf Calendar Slam kind of.
Wow. That's a wild, but a good one. Yeah.
She hasn't, though. She's missing out on those. But what you would then say, John, is, but John, your argument here is you're a bit worried about her losing early. Yeah, I do think the time has come. Now so I'm worried about if she gets to the semis or the final, especially bearing in mind how many painful final losses she's had this year. Because she also lost in the final in Stuttgart to Ostapenko as well. Of course she won Madrid too, and there's been others as well. But but I'm also a bit worried right now. I saw her in Berlin, and I thought to myself, you've just got to get rid of the cobwebs and the hangover that might still be happening from the French Open, which I know is going to hurt Arena a lot. It hurt Arena a lot to lose that quarterfinal to Mida Andreeva last year. It hurt her even more when she was up a break in the third set against Mukova in 23 in the semifinals. So close. So that feels like a bit of a poison chalice or just a thing. And I'm just a bit worried about where she is in terms of vulnerability. And in a way, if she gets through this, then I'll have her maybe in the final.
Okay,
sure she's getting through this.
You make a compelling case, right? I think if you take tough losses in the latter rounds for long enough, then yes, I think your rationale tracks. The only other thing that I have to add to this is that I think Vondrousova has the coolest tattoos on the tour. Every time I watch her play, I'm like, I should get a tattoo, right? Would it look that cool on me? No, it wouldn't. But she does. She pulls them off, and I think much has been made on the internet of that and how she looks like many people living in Brooklyn, New York, with that style, and it looks cool.
The last title Sabalenka won was in Madrid, I think, because she got to the quarters in Rome and then the final at the French Open, and then the quarters, I think, semis in Berlin. Sorry, semis in Berlin, by the way, where she lost to Marketa Vondrousova in straight sets. Ooh. A match that I watched and am probably being influenced by, albeit asterisk, Berlin. Different, as are pretty much, especially outside of England, there are differences between those courts and Wimbledon. I even think some of the ones in England as well, I look at them and they do play a little bit less consistently than Wimbledon does, particularly in the first week. Okay, but there we go. That's me, and that's what I'm going for. Vondrousova still had a really good win today. Raducanu, I did see most of this match, just felt pretty comfortable for Emma. Big question mark still, in my opinion, about her fitness. With the back injury, that will be time will tell, and it wasn't getting tested that much today, so it will get tested in round 2, and if he comes through that, it'll definitely get tested in round 3 should it be Sabalenka. All right, going to move on. Next section of the draw, we see Mertens winning in straight sets over Fruhvirtova. Lee beating Golubic in 3 sets. Wonderful match here between Sasnovich and Grasheva that I missed out on, but that was won in the 3rd set, deciding tiebreak by Sasnovich. And Svitolina winning in straight sets over Bondar. Pretty straightforward there. So we've got Mertens against Lee, Sasnovich against Svitolina. Anything you want to say about any of these 4 players that won today?
Nothing too exciting other than I'm always a fan of Svitolina. I enjoy watching her play. I always root for her success. I think that looking at where things stand, she's going to be the one who emerges from this 8th of the draw. I don't see anybody that should give her any real trouble. I think that she should not drop a set for the next 2 matches, regardless of who she gets.
All right, next section. Badosa Bolter was as good as it probably sounds. It had a couple of sort of very, very different sets in that Bolter was just crushing the turns in the 1st set and Badosa couldn't live with her. 2nd set, Badosa, yes, 6-3, but it was a comfortable set for Paula. I think she was actually up a double break, but Katie got one of them back. I then tuned in for the 3rd set. I was leaning on 1 or 2 others as well regarding the first 2 sets, so I was aware of what was going on, albeit that I didn't see much of the first 2 sets. The 3rd set, though, and especially the last couple of games, Badosa was... a shadow of what I know she's capable of. Bolter said in her on-court interview afterwards, I just sort of, wanted to make her play another ball. There was a volley into the net. There was a couple of other unforced errors from Paolo. And it was a bit of she's had a back injury for 2 years, on, off.
Yeah.
She's had a really stop-start couple of months as well. This natural surface is part of the year. Maybe it's a little bit easier on the back for her, but it's where she also can often excel. She's arguably one of the top 5 players in the world across the 3 surfaces, bearing in mind where she's at across those 3 surfaces compared to some of her peers. But this has probably just come a bit too soon in terms of her evolution in terms of fitness. But fingers crossed she can get herself fit. But when she walked off court as meekly as she kind of exited the tournament. And I mean that in the nicest possible way. I just mean that it's like, this is not me. This is not me.
That's tough.
And she lost to a Brit as well in the crowd. And you're not going to be waving to the crowd and giving high fives and stuff, are you? And saying, hey, look at me. I know I lost in 3 sets, but give me a round of applause. But she just sort of was a bit like, well, not a bit embarrassed, but just a bit like, this is not me, ladies and gentlemen. I've not delivered. In this same section of the draw, by the way, I see Vekic emerging from these 4 players to get to the 4th round.
I think I'm going to stick with Bolter. I think Bolter looks good. She's in form. I think she's on the ascent. I think she's playing. I mean, she's got a good win. I know it was against a not fully 100% Badosa, but I think she's got some confidence and she can make a deep run. Ooh, and there's the Australian Open champ.
Yeah, right. By the way, Madison Keys, what an effort it was for her today. I mean, losing the 1st set, she goes up a break in the 2nd, gets pegged back, then ultimately wins it 7-5. And that's a hairy way to come through a 1st round when you're one of the 3 favorites, I would say, for the title, at least according to many of our colleagues that talk in tennis. I think Nick, for example, has it going all the way to take the title. And she's got excellent pedigree on this surface. Super unlucky with an injury last year against Paolini, and I'm pretty sure she would have won that match should she not have got injured. But anyway, all things are good for Madison now because she got the Australian Open title. And I would, despite that rough ride today, now with Peyton Stearns going out in the 1st round as well, I think I see her emerging from this Danilovic, Siegmund, Fernandez section.
I think that tracks. I would have expected a better performance from Stearns. I'm not saying that was like I was expecting a straight sets win, but 4-2. I didn't see that result coming for Stearns, who I thought had a chance to do a little bit more.
Indeed. So moving on down, Paolini lost the 1st set, but ultimately came through in 3 over Sevastova. Rakhimova as well, winning in 3 sets over the Japanese Ito. Lise, by the way, was serving for it in the 2nd set, but couldn't serve it out. Yuan comes back, but then eventually Lise does come through in 3. Noskova is the person I probably have emerging from this section, although I can understand why most would lean Paolini. But I think Noskova can do something and get to the 4th round.
I certainly am one of those leaning Paolini. Break it down for us. What are you seeing out of Noskova right now that's got her on your list?
Couple of things. Return, I love it, and I love it on the grass. And 2, I was persuaded by a guy called Mert Atunga. He is a coach, and I think he has Linda getting all the way to the semis. He's a former coach of Zeynep Sonmez, and he's coached a few other people, let's say a little bit lower down the echelons of the tennis world. And he was on with Nick on WTA Weekly on Sunday. And it's also because of this section. It's also because despite getting to the final last year, Paolini on grass is not really as big a thing as we might think it is. Paolini should lose to Madison Keys last year, and then we just continue with Paolini's an excellent player who's made huge strides, but grass is not her thing. However, she wins that match. She then comes through an epic mental battle with Donna Vekic, which actually Jasmine Paolini was just destined to win. And then, of course, she goes 3 sets with Barbora Krejcikova, but Paolini is not one of the 4 best players in the world on grass.
Yeah.
And therefore, it's also this section of the draw as well that makes me go a little bit bigger on Noskov than you might realize.
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that the WTA Weekly, the podcast that Nick is hosting, it is phenomenal. He does such a great job with that. And so if y'all aren't following along or aren't listening, you've got to check it out. It is, I would say, my favorite WTA podcast right now.
There you go. Nicely endorsed there, even from one of our own, who's obviously going to be a little bit biased. But no, I do appreciate it.
I'm real biased, but I'm right. I'm biased, but doesn't make me wrong. So give it a listen, folks.
Here it is. I'm just going to share it with you on the screen as well. You're still relevant, and you can still reflect on some of the predictions for the first round, at least, that might have gone awry. But there's still plenty of bigger picture stuff there where both Mert and Nick ultimately break down and choose their quarterfinalists, semifinalists, and
I got to poke a little fun at him. He's got Navarro in his semifinals. Ridiculous. Absolutely not. No chance.
Oh yeah, Nick has Navarro in his semis. Yeah.
Get real. If Navarro's in the semifinals, like, we need to make a bet about whether that's going to happen or not, because I'll take crazy odds.
From that section, I got Pegula getting to the semis.
I guess for a guy who had Berrettini in the semis, to make fun of somebody else's predictions is a bit hypocritical, but you know what? Here we are. Right. This section of the draw, there's a few names in here that have got some grass court pedigree. There's one that certainly didn't live up to that pedigree, which we'll come to in a moment. But Haddad Maia, for me, has got some grass court pedigree. I remember someone tipping her to win the title at Wimbledon a couple of years ago on the back of a grass court title she won in the build up to Wimbledon. Anyway, she's up against the Hungarian Galfi. I like Galfi on grass as well, really aggressive player, and I think that can work quite well. But anyway, Haddad Maia and Galfi winning today. Azad Azua beating Wickmeyer, and that comfortably kind of took me by surprise. But Anisimova double bageling Putintseva. Double bagels do not happen that often. I have no idea if Putintseva was just basically sick or physical ailments, because I didn't see this match. I expected Anisimova to come through because Putintseva is struggling for form, but I did not expect 6-love. And I have Anisimova emerging from this section, actually. So what is going on with Putintseva? Like get it together. Another one who just needs to get it together.
Mega. I mean, she won a grass court tournament in the build-up to Wimbledon. She had some good runs on the clay, some good wins on the clay, and she pushed, I think, Rebecca in one particular encounter. It might have been the French Open, I think. But yeah, something is up. I don't know if it's physical or mental, but she's not playing anywhere near her level. But today, I don't know if she had an issue of some sort. I'm just going to actually have a quick look on Twitter just to see if somebody is.
Well, we'll see looking that up. With the challenge watching a player like Putintseva, who always looks like she's having a bad time on the court, is like when they're having a bad time and a bad result, it's really difficult to tell what's going on, what's going differently, because it looks more or less the same as an average result. Where Putintseva is oftentimes generally having a bad time too. I think also sometimes people with the drama, they get a hold of their lives, and that's not just pro athletes and pro tennis players. That's just people. And Putintseva, I think, like with the exchange with Sakari, which is one of many of those types of moments. Like I just think, I think she's just got to take a step back, breathe, and kind of do a reset. And after getting double bageled in round 1, she's got time. So go do that.
Listen, we talk about resets and maybe even one day soon leaving the sport.
Oh, don't break my heart. Oh, it hurts.
And it
She's
did
a minister
hurt.
Of fun.
I know. And watching her today, it was a bit sad.
Yeah.
She was sick, of course. She took a medical timeout at 3-2 on serve. She actually broke immediately, Tomova, in the first game to go up 1-love, but got broken back immediately. But it did feel like there was going to be plenty of breaks out there, and eventually Jabeur would win the match one way or another. And when they were back on serve, because Jabeur then goes to set a break down, but then she gets it back on serve. There was a couple, really unfortunate for Ons as well, that if you are feeling under the weather, Tomova is making her hit another ball so often. And also there was a couple of games that just seemed to never end at deuce. And I think the first set was well over an hour. It was a 7-6 first set as well. And she took a medical timeout for sickness as well. I think she took a pill at that point. But, this is what I wanted to come to. Remember earlier we were talking about, someone's in the crowd. Seemed to take an age to find a physio for Ons Jabeur. I'm talking maybe 3 or 4 minutes, maybe even 5 minutes that she sat on the chair. I noticed it at about 2 minutes that she's called the physio and she's still waiting. So then at 2 minutes, I'm like, hang on a second, where's the physio? So I thought I'll leave it another minute because I'm doing a live stream. I thought I'll give it another minute before I mention it again. And at 3 minutes, I go, where on earth is the physio? Because they should be at the side of every tennis court. They're not trying to get in the queue for Wimbledon or they're stuck on the train. They should be at the side of the court ready to act as and when. And all Ons needed was obviously something a bit quickly just to get her sort of settled a little bit, shall we say, for that the second half of the first set.
Thank you so much for raising that, John, because that is one of those things that makes me, as a tennis lover, rationally angry.
Yeah.
It is many people's job to make sure that situation never happens. And they didn't do it. And yet again, they did a disservice to the players, and a beloved player like Jabeur, who has had some great runs at Wimbledon. And not only do they do disservice to the player, they do disservice to the fans. I'm worried about Ons. I think I'm not sure how much longer she's going to be on the tour. And I feel crazy saying that, but look, it's a grueling sport. It's a grueling schedule. If you lose half a step, and it's not like she's relied on her athleticism, it's her shot making, creativity, and touch. I don't know that we're going to see the Ons that we all know and tennis form again.
I know she got to the US Open final in 2022, but her season really is built around the natural surfaces, grass in particular, clay as well. This is her time, and now grass is done, and we're not going to be on a natural surface until April, unless you're going into 125s, or I don't know what kind of a post Wimbledon clay court swing there is on the women's side. I know it happens on the men's, but we're basically, in terms of the titles that Jabeur wants to be competing for, are not coming around again until April, May next year. She will probably play. There's a tournament in Tunisia, I think, in September, just after the US Open. I know she's not been able to play it the last couple of years through injury. She'll be keen to probably play that in her home country. But the hard courts as well for her, both in terms of her game style, but also in terms of her health. Yes, she can win matches. Absolutely. She can maybe beat almost anyone on the planet on her day. Is she getting to another Grand Slam final on a hard court? Absolutely not.
Last thing for me really quick, John. I got Schneider in my semis, and wow, did her draw get easier after this first round. Ostapenko and Jabeur, two players who realistically both could have pushed her or beaten her.
Yeah.
And that's not to take away from Perry, Tomova, or Kartal, but Schneider should win those matches, regardless.
There you go. That's nice. Okay, I just want to have a quick word on Ostapenko Kartal. It's a match I saw. Ostapenko was serving for the first set, somehow messed it up, and Kartal ruthlessly took it. But then once it settled down in the second set and Ostapenko raced away with it, I thought, okay, here we go, job done. Before you know it, Kartal is leading 5-love in looking to bagel Ostapenko. Ostapenko loosens up and starts hitting some worldies on the turn in particular. Gets a break back, but of course it's too little too late. And eventually Kartal serves it out the second time we're asking with them. Some pretty clutch play. I think she did it to love, including maybe even an ace. So it's Kartal who goes through. So Ostapenko is out, and her Wimbledon dream will have to wait for another year. Okay, moving down. Pavlyuchenkova came back from a set down to beat Tomljanovic. That's a match that I knew that Tomljanovic won the first set, so I'm now just seeing Pavlyuchenkova went through. Well done to her, of course, former French Open finalist. Kruger beating Stosavljevic. That's probably a brutal take of her name. And
Osaka.
Yeah, exactly. Osaka coming through as well, and she had a few bumps in that ride. I think she was down a break in both first and second set, I think. But she is through, so that's good news for Naomi. Anything to add on any of these results or players on my screen?
Nothing. I think it's bummer for Tomljanovic. Good to see Naomi get a win. She's a ways away from being a ways away, but she's on the right track.
All right, let's have a very quick look at some of the matches tomorrow. Just some of the matches maybe you're looking forward to. What do I have to do? I have to go on the website again and get scores and schedule up. We've already spoken about. We've already spoken.
Pulling that up. I do want to say, Jake JV's very much appreciated that you're enjoying this last ball. We really appreciate the kind words. Thank you for tuning in so often and for being such a great supporter of Talking Tennis. Greatly appreciate it. It warms the cockles of my heart.
2 matches on center court that I think are pretty appealing. One is Krejcikova against Ayala, which of course we'll have a watch along for on the channel. I do have Krejcikova coming through, but I think...
Will you be joining that watch along, John?
No, of course you're on it. No, I cannot. I wish I could, but I'm working. But I have got a couple of nice guests. At least one colleague anyway will be with you. Fergus is going to be with you for that. And I know you can only say...
Stop it. I've got the hunk. Me and the hunk. Yeah, there we go.
Hunk. Yeah. So Fergus is there. And I think maybe Eddie as well. I'm still waiting for Eddie to confirm. So it might be 3 of you. Anyway, and the other one is Yastremska against Goff. I'll come back to you in a second, I promise. And then on court 1, that 1 set shootout is going to be interesting between Fritz and Perricard, as annoyed as we are the fact that they didn't do it today. So those are probably the sort of 3 matches, if you include Fritz and Perricard, that I am looking forward to on those 2 show courts tomorrow.
The good news is Sinner is going to absolutely roll Nardi, and so it'll get to that second match pretty quickly.
Draper's going to roll Byers as well.
Kvitova is going to beat Navarro in round 1. You heard it here first.
Okay. All right. I'm not so sure about that, but we'll see. Let me just see if I can find an upset. No, Swiatek is going to win. Shelton's beating Bolt. Let me just see.
Monday is playing on Tuesday.
Monday's playing on Tuesday. There we go. I'm not predicting a shock, far from it, but I didn't know Avanesian was going to play Rybakina. A real contrast of styles there, but contrast as well in the Avanesian on grass. No, don't worry about it. Siniakova Zheng. If Siniakova is fit, she can cause a lot of problems for Zheng. If she's fit. I say that because she continued and finished her match with Pegula last week in Berlin, but leg issues. So she was really struggling then. It didn't look good as well in terms of a week later playing in London.
Friend of the show, Clara Towson, who is, by the way, on the ascent.
Yeah, she's winning that against Heather Watson. Sorry, Heather.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, Mulfie, every single time you can watch him play, do it.
Well,
you do not have for that much longer. Watch Mulfie.
2 more matches here that you might be interested in. Monfils against Humbert, All French affair, and Kennan against Townsend, an All-American affair. So, what about those 2 matches? I think Kennan can have a little run at Wimbledon, 3rd round, 4th round, maybe. I've got her beating Townsend.
Certainly can. Townsend on grass. Keep an eye on her. You just never know. Also, in the battle for Britain, I've got Dan Evans. I'm such a fan of Dan Evans, and I think same deal. He's another one. Anytime he's on, we only have matches left. Go watch Dan Evans. It's great.
Fun.
In the UK.
Yeah, definitely. Mickelson, I'm really excited to see him on the grass of Wimbledon, and maybe even win 2, 3, 4 matches. I think I've got him playing Djokovic, maybe even in round 4. I'm not sure if it's round 3 or round 4, those 2.
He's got the weapons to get there. And if you want to have a straight up bad time tomorrow, just watch the Opelka match. That's what I do. When I want to be unhappy, I watch Riley Opelka play tennis. And so there you go.
August Holmgren is a really nice guy. He's not quite friend of the show status, but if he gets lucky and we meet him again later on this year, he can certainly elevate himself to that level. A really good guy. He's going to be making his Grand Slam debut, so I'm looking forward to seeing him play Quinton Hallis.
You got Eubanks? Could Eubanks get that? I got Eubanks getting the win here. And I think Fucsovic maybe steals one.
Eubanks can get the win, but I remember his section thinking, he can beat De Jong on grass, but I'm not sure he's going much further. I can't remember who his second round opponent would be, but I think it might be Shelton even, actually. Jaime Faria making his Wimbledon debut. Of course, not his Grand Slam debut because he's made the main draw in Australia. And Did he make the French Open main draw as well? I think he did, yeah. Anyway, of course, in Australia, he won a match in the first round too. And Faria on grass is a good thing. I expect him to probably lose, but I think that could go 4 or 5, Faria and Sonego. With Faria's serve, he can win sets left, right, and center. Talking of serves and ability.
Keep an eye on Sakari. You never know when she might round back into form, but you also never know when she's going to crash out. I'd love to see her find her form here. Great opportunity to do so. I lean towards Blinkova, though.
Yeah, me too. And it's been sort of 3 years. I know there has been the odd moment, including a Wells final and a 1,000 title. But that 1,000 title in Mexico, basically every woman and their dogs didn't turn up. And she's like, yeah, I'll play. And she won the title, beating like, I don't know, whatever on the way to the title. But whatever. Okay. That is about it. I love Giron on grass, by the way. I think he can beat Carabelli. Marajan I love, but not so much on grass. So who knows what'll happen there. Mute, I've got him on a little run as well at Wimbledon. 3-4 matches, I think he'll get in. So third round or fourth round. I remember having him down that far. And that's about it. Bublik getting underway against Munar. Bublik will probably go 5 sets, even though he shouldn't.
He can find a way. That's the beauty of a Bublik match. Literally anything can happen.
Tatiana Maria in action and Mukova as well. Mukova against Wong. That is a very interesting encounter, and that could go either way, particularly with Mukova's wrist issues. That means she's been having to use a one-handed backhand. Any final words, Zach, from you before we wrap this up?
Nothing other than it's a great time to be a tennis fan. We had a really fun first day. I think don't let the stoppages fool you. It was a great day of tennis, and tomorrow's going to be too. And I look forward to watching. And I think for folks that have enjoyed this episode of Last Ball Drop, I hope to see y'all for the watch along against Iala. Feel free to shoot me a note on Twitter. And John, as always, thank you so much for putting all this together, for giving all of us the chance to talk some tennis with you, and for having me on today.
Yep, and you will be back tomorrow morning, pretty early. I think it will be your time for Alex Iala against Barbora Krejcikova. We'll have a watch along for that, and then tomorrow evening in Europe, at least tomorrow evening, we'll have another one of these last ball drops. I think we'll have Damien Vanch, and is it you or someone else? It's Fergus. When are you next back scheduled in for one of these? Do you remember? Wednesday, Thursday?
I think. Such a good question. I have some availability.
I got you down for Wednesday. If that's okay with you.
It's not okay with me. It's great with me, John.
There you go. And you're with Fergus again. So if you don't want to be next to good-looking people, you need to avoid that boy.
I love being on with Fergus because I feel like there's a big age gap, so there's like a generational gap. There is a cultural gap, not a huge one, but a very much one that exists in the States and the UK. And I feel like he is comfortable poking a little fun at that. And I think
make sure you remind him that Shelton's got a higher ceiling than Jack Draper, and that'll get him going.
I mean, he's far more likely to make the semis than Draper as well this year.
There you go. There we go. Spitting facts here. Give Zach a follow on X at ZACKCZ. We'll catch up with you all again very soon. But now it's time to go to bed. At least for me, Zach. Even for you, I think it's a bit early for your bedtime. I think if it's 7:20 where you are,
it's 7:20. I'm an early bird, so I'll be up at 5. So I'll be in bed in a couple hours, though.
Look at you. Host of the Triangle Tennis Podcast, Zach CZ. Host of this episode of The Last Ball Drops. We'll be back again, of course, in 24 hours' time to reflect on day 2 at Wimbledon. But in between now and then, you know the drill. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.